What is up, Ace here? I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine who is in San Francisco, and after catching up on COVID and everything that's going on, we're talking about his business. And he raised some capital from some angels and a few, I think three angels and a venture capital, small venture capital firm. And it reminded me of the difference of what we're doing here and what the goal is of venture capitalists and angel investors. And this is something that I think is important. Number one, important enough for me to come in and make a quick video on it, but it's something to consider because there's a big push to get investors and pull people into deals. And one of the downsides to that is making sure that the expectation that you have is aligned with the expectation that the investors have. And so, as he told his story, it reminded me of 20 years ago when I raised some capital from some angels, and I was very fortunate that we did really well for a couple years, and then the business hit a wall with September 11th. After that, most of our clients went out of business, and it was just very obvious that the business was going to die. And so we were able to sell off some assets and that kind of thing, and that was the end. The tough thing for a lot of people that end up raising capital from angels and VCs is that the way that the economics works for those guys is that they are, it's all or nothing. They are waiting for a really, really big win or nothing. And they know that, out of the 20 deals that are in the portfolio, 90% of them will eventually fail. And one of them is going to hopefully turn into Uber. Hopefully, right? So it's a much different model. And I put us in between. We aren't true private equity because true private equity, they're excited for 15%, 20% would just be absolutely outrageous, but they're okay with as low as 10% returns. Um, VC on the other end, they're saying 90% of these things are going to fail, and then we're okay with 4,000% return on the Airbnb deal. Now, we're kind of in the middle because we know that some of these deals are going to fail. They're small businesses. We expect that. That goes into the calculation. We know that some of these deals are going to stay the same, and we know that some of these deals are going to, really grow, but not 4,000%. Maybe it's 400%. So, we did have a deal that recently was in the current circumstances 400%, and we've got other deals that aren't doing as well. But that's the goal of having this portfolio. Now, going back to my friend over in San Fran, what happens for some people who raise capital from people that are thinking like a VC or thinking like an angel? Um, One of the things that happens is I think the expectation is, okay, I already know that this is going to be all or nothing. And unfortunately for the entrepreneur, and in my friend's case, if you get stuck in that in between stage where it hasn't failed, but it's not big, then it's just like, okay, we'll just continue until it either fails or or hits, some kind of big opportunity and explodes. And he's at a point where he really wants to sell and get, move on with his life. And so one of the things that I think is interesting is what you're doing during that time. There is a lot of win-win to it. I think back to me raising capital as a 19-year-old kid, and man, just everything that I learned about running a business back then was just so powerful. I'm so glad that I'm so glad that I quit school. Thank God I quit school. But more importantly, I'm really glad that I got those lessons, and then obviously got a lot more thereafter. But what you're trading for those investment funds, when you take on, especially the VC and angel type investors in a business, and this is kind of one of those other things. When I talk about the downsides of kind of starting a business from scratch, this is kind of one of those hidden things of the type of people that you have to raise capital from when you are starting a business from scratch are these kind of VC and angel types. And it kind of puts you in some golden handcuffs. And that's kind of what my buddy is in right now, where he wants to move on and try something else. This deal didn't work out the way he wanted to, and even had a potential buyer, and would have gotten out at a decent multiple. The investors were going to get their money back, and the investors were like, no, like we didn't get into this to make our money, to get our money back, which is like, from there it's like, hey, either this thing, yeah, it could. And he's like, hey, like it looks like this isn't going to work, it could fail, we're in COVID and da da da. And there's like, yeah, but we got 2 more years that we definitely can make it. So we'll see if anything happens in those 2 years that changes things. And so he's kind of stuck. And so the thing, or the one of the things to be aware of for you guys as you go out, and if you're somebody that's trying to raise that kind of capital, what you give up is bigger than just the 2 years. And for my buddy's in his mid 20s, and it's not just 2 years. It's two of your most powerful years as far as taking advantage of opportunity. When you're still young, you got a lot of energy. When I'm older now, I don't have I'm not pulling the all nighters and stuff that I would in my 20s. Those days are over. But you've got a lot of energy. You're not tied up in marriage and that kind of thing, which you would have to focus on. You don't, he doesn't have a kid, so that frees up a lot of time. He's able to move anywhere and take advantage of opportunities during that time. So he's not settled, and so that those years, having that kind of 2 more year commitment is a lot higher opportunity cost than that 2 year commitment in 10 years from now or whatever. So when he will approve, he's actually getting a salary. Like it's not a terrible situation, but it's the opportunity cost of that kind of mild situation is what the real cost is. It's not like, oh man, I'm living destitute and I'm not getting a salary, and life is so hard. But when you look at, okay, I could really be working on something I'm more excited about, more passionate about, I see has bigger potential. He actually has a opportunity to do something, and you're in these golden handcuffs that essentially don't allow you to leave. So this is important when you're looking at any deal, and even in private equity. When it comes to private equity, this is one of the differences in the mentality of the investors. And I think why you want to work, with private equity investors, which would mean you probably want to do private equity deals, just because when you're investing and I've done some angel investing, and it's more of a lottery ticket mentality. Like even for my angel investment, if they came back to me and said, hey, you're gonna get this private equity kind of type of return on this, I would be disappointed, even though I'm happy with my private equity return in private equity. But I knew going into that deal that I was taking a massive, massive risk. It wasn't making any money. It was complete startup. The chances of this doing anything are none. And so this is my very risky um, money. So it's like, okay, it's lottery. Either I'm gonna win big or it's gonna be nothing. And even with regular investors, for you, those of you that are working with friends and family and that kind of thing to close a deal, you want to make sure that they're clued into what the expectations are. I know even when it just comes to buying internet businesses, sometimes people think, okay, I'm going to buy this business and it's going to turn into Facebook. But obviously, that we understand that that's not the types of deals that we're doing. But you don't want to be in a situation where even when you have a good result, you're disappointing your investors, or they try to tie you into the deal and make it difficult for you to get out. Just a quick thought on that. And if you guys aren't already, be sure to reach out. I'll include an email below. We are taking people through the first private equity fund incubator. I'm doing some videos and kind of updates on some of the things that we're up to in that. If you want to follow along, reach out to the email that I'll include below. Besides that, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We're in some really interesting times, a lot of deals happening, and I think there's a ton more opportunity coming down the pipe. Thanks so much for checking out the video.